I swear, the moment I realized what she was doing, I didn't feel rage. Not at first. Rage is noisy, messy, it trips you up. What I felt was something colder, cleaner. The kind of silence you hear in your head when you've just finished solving a puzzle and the last piece clicks in. It started like this. I walked into the house carrying groceries. My mistake, buying her favorite wine, like I was still auditioning for Husband of the Year. In the hallway, I heard her laugh. Not the laugh she gave me, the tired one that sounded like she was doing charity work by acknowledging my jokes. No, this was lighter, girlish, the laugh of someone who suddenly remembered how to flirt. I set the bags down quietly, walked toward the laundry room, and that's where she was, phone in hand, tossing clothes into the dryer, grinning at the screen. She didn't notice me right away. She was too busy typing. "You're lucky I even let you touch me." That's what she said, into the phone. Her voice carried, clear as glass. And then she giggled. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, watching the woman who had spent years living off my back, my work, my money, my patience, acting like I was some unwelcome roommate. She turned, finally saw me, and rolled her eyes like I was interrupting her little soap opera. "You're standing there like a creep. What's your problem?" "My problem," I said slowly, "is that I've been living with a stranger. And apparently, she's a comedian too." She smirked. "Oh, don't be dramatic. You're always so sensitive." That was her specialty, minimizing everything. Anytime she messed up, I was too sensitive. Anytime she crossed a line, I was imagining things. But the truth was buzzing in her hand, lighting up her phone every 30 seconds with little hearts and "can't wait to see you again" messages. I didn't snatch the phone. I didn't yell. That's what she expected. Instead, I gave her a smile. The kind of smile that makes people uncomfortable because they can't read it. "You know," I said, "I run a team of 20 engineers who can measure metal down to half a human hair. I notice things, patterns, mistakes, lies. Do you really think you're that good at hiding?" She blinked, then scoffed. "You sound paranoid." "Maybe." I shrugged. But the thing about paranoia is, sometimes it's just awareness with better timing. I left her standing there, phone in hand, looking annoyed instead of guilty. That was her first mistake. She thought I'd walk away and stew. What she didn't know was that I already had a folder waiting. A box too. Evidence takes patience, and patience had been my strong suit long before she met me. That night, while she was upstairs scrolling through Instagram, pretending to care about real estate listings she'd never afford without me, I sat in my office. The little oak box sat on my desk, empty, but not for long. I opened my laptop, pulled up the synced iPad account she'd never noticed, and began sorting through her texts. One screenshot after another. One email forwarded to myself. Receipts, dates, locations. She thought she was clever. She was sloppy. And me? I wasn't angry. I was preparing. The next morning, she tried her usual routine, masking contempt with faux sweetness. Came downstairs in that smug little robe she wore whenever she wanted to play domestic goddess, poured herself coffee, and leaned on the counter like nothing was wrong. "You didn't say goodnight," she said, her tone syrupy and fake. "I figured you were tired of touching me." I replied, smiling over my toast. Her eyes flickered, just a second, but enough for me to know the words landed. Then she brushed it off with her favorite word, dramatic. See, she'd built her whole identity on that one tactic. Gaslight, deflect, repeat. And for years, I'd let her. Not anymore. I slid my plate into the sink, kissed her on the cheek like it was any other Tuesday, and left for work. She thought the normalcy meant she was safe. That was her second mistake. Because on my lunch break, while she was probably texting her contractor boyfriend from the yoga studio, I was at the bank. Safety deposit box. Fresh key. Empty drawer waiting. I smiled at the clerk, thanked her, tucked the key into my pocket, and walked out with the calm of a man buying groceries. Back at the office, between reviewing machine calibrations and checking procurement orders, I organized the screenshots. Email chains from her training retreats. Hotel receipts in her name. 2 occupants, 1 room. Timestamped texts about how she needed last night, while she told me she was stuck in a board meeting. When I got home that evening, she was already pouring wine. "Rough day?" she asked, pretending to care. "Not at all," I said. "Everything's aligning." She smirked. "Good. Maybe you'll stop sulking then." Sulking. That's what she thought my silence was. What she never understood is that men like me don't sulk. We built. Later that night, I pretended to fall asleep before her. At 11:17 p.m., she was still scrolling on her tablet, snickering at messages that weren't meant for me. I heard the little ding of another notification. She shifted, her voice soft as she typed back, "Miss you already." I lay there, eyes closed, breathing steady, while she crafted her little fantasy life 2 feet from the man she thought was oblivious. And I realized something. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was stupid. That gave me hope. Because stupidity leaves fingerprints. And I had all the time in the world to collect them. By the end of that week, I had a folder thicker than a law textbook. Every screenshot, every receipt, every flirty little emoji she thought was harmless, it all went into neat chronological order. I wasn't gathering evidence just to prove she cheated. I was building a case to prove who she really was: careless, arrogant, entitled. Saturday morning, she strutted in from Pilates with a fake glow, tossing her mat into the corner. "You should try a class," she said. "Might help with that stiff back of yours." I smiled. "And maybe you should try honesty. Might help with your stiff conscience." She blinked, then rolled her eyes, muttering something about me, always turning things into drama. The robe of denial was stitched tight around her. She thought as long as she mocked me, I'd retreat. That afternoon, while she ran errands, I drove to Ridge Hill, checked into the same hotel she'd been visiting under the guise of work trips. Same wallpaper I'd seen in the background of one of Loverboy's bathroom selfies. I didn't go there for revenge, not yet. I went there for verification. The clerk at the front desk remembered her too well. "She comes here every couple of weeks," she said with a professional smile. "Always books the same corner suite." I nodded, slipping her a folded 20. "With her husband, right?" The clerk hesitated. Then she shook her head. "Not you." That was enough. Verification. Clean, simple, undeniable. Back home, she was already in her robe again, wine glass in hand. "Traffic was awful," she said, flopping onto the couch like she'd fought in a war. "Yeah," I asked, leaning on the doorway. "Did Ridge Hill clear up eventually?" Her wine paused halfway to her lips. "What? Traffic?" I repeated calmly, just wondering if the drive from Ridge Hill was smooth. She laughed, too quickly, too loud. "You're ridiculous. I went to Target." "Sure," I said, smiling like a man humoring a child. She shifted, annoyed by my lack of reaction. "You're obsessed. Honestly, it's pathetic." "Maybe," I said, walking past her, heading upstairs. "But the thing about obsession? It pays off." That night, while she drifted into her wine coma, I uploaded every file onto 3 separate drives. One for the deposit box, one for the cloud, one hidden in plain sight, labeled Car Manuals 2014 to 2020. She'd never touch it. She hadn't opened a hood in her life. And as I closed my laptop, I realized something important. She wasn't just digging her own grave. She was furnishing it. By the time spring rolled around, she'd gotten bold. Bold people make mistakes. See, back in the beginning, she'd at least try to hide her little escapades. Deleted texts, fake receipts, the occasional lie dressed in work jargon. But like every liar, once she thought she had me beat, she got sloppy. It started small, her phone buzzing during dinner with my family. She used to flip it over, pretend it wasn't important. But now, she'd glance at it, smirk, type back with her thumb flying like she was curing cancer. My sister raised an eyebrow. My mother noticed. Everyone noticed. "Who keeps blowing you up?" my sister asked one night. "Oh, just Celeste, my wife, Vanessa," replied casually, naming her realtor friend. "She's so needy with clients. Doesn't know how to set boundaries." That was her cover story. And my sister, bless her heart, just nodded. But I caught the tiny slip, Vanessa's tone. Too sharp, too rehearsed. She was playing to the crowd, not speaking the truth. I didn't call her out. Not yet. A few days later, she dragged me to a neighborhood barbecue. The kind where everyone's pretending their marriage is perfect, their kids are gifted, and their dog doesn't eat socks. I played along, beer in hand, answering questions about work, letting her play Mrs. Successful while she floated around in her sundress. But then came the whisper. Across the yard, 2 wives were huddled by the lemonade stand. One leaned into the other, not realizing I was within earshot. "Vanessa's been spending a lot of time at that Ridge Hill hotel. My friend saw her car there twice last month." The other one gasped. "Oh my God, with who?" I didn't stick around for the rest. Didn't need to. Gossip spreads faster than mold. And the thing about mold is, you don't need to encourage it. It'll take over on its own. Vanessa came over a few minutes later, fake smile plastered on her face. Why are you standing here alone? Just enjoying the view, I said, sipping my beer. She gave me a side glance. You look smug. Do I? I asked. Funny. Thought you'd know the difference between smug and patient by now. That rattled her. She laughed, too loud, and walked off to refill her drink. Now, let me tell you something. Patience is a weapon. While she thought I was being passive, I was tightening the noose she'd gladly stuck her head into. The very next week, she slipped. Big time. We were supposed to attend a dinner with my boss and his wife. Important people, the kind who can make or break a career with a single phone call. She claimed she had a last-minute showing with a client. I told her it was fine. Smiled. Let her go. But that same evening, I called a cab, gave the driver an address I knew by heart, the Ridge Hill Hotel. The clerk didn't even blink when I asked if Vanessa had checked in. Yes, corner suite, she said, scrolling through the ledger. She's with a guest. Ah, I said, pulling out my wallet. Mind printing me a receipt? My accountant needs everything on file. The clerk hesitated. I smiled. Money makes hesitation vanish. Receipt in hand, I left. No drama. No confrontation. Just paper. Paper always outlasts lies. When I got home, she was already there, robe on, glass of wine in hand. How was dinner? She asked, feigning interest. Productive, I said, slipping my jacket over the chair. She grinned. See? Told you you'd have a good time. I looked at her then, really looked at her. Veneers gleaming under the kitchen light. Makeup smudged from being reapplied too quickly. Eyes a little too bright from adrenaline. She thought she was untouchable. Funny thing, I said softly. My boss's wife was at Ridge Hill tonight. Said she saw you in the lobby. Her smile cracked. Just for a second. Then she barked out a laugh. Oh my God, she's mistaken. You know how women gossip. I wasn't anywhere near Ridge Hill. Of course not. I replied smoothly, reaching for a glass of water. Silly of me to even repeat it. She relaxed, thinking she'd dodged it. That was the beauty of my game. I let her believe she was winning. Nothing hooks a liar deeper than the illusion of safety. That night, while she snored beside me, I slipped the Ridge Hill receipt into the oak box. The stack was growing. Dates, times, photos, texts, receipts. Each one a nail. Each one hammered in silence. And here's the thing. I wasn't just building evidence for divorce court. No, divorce was too clean, too easy. I wanted her world to collapse. But collapse doesn't come from rage. Collapse comes from precision. A week later, I started making small moves. Quiet ones. First, I called our bank and froze the joint credit card for security reasons. She'd been using it for spa trips and lunches with her girlfriends. Suddenly, her card declined at Nordstrom. She came home fuming. Did you forget to pay the bill? She snapped. No, I said calmly, slicing an apple at the counter. Fraud alert. Just being safe. She rolled her eyes. You're paranoid. Maybe, I said, offering her a slice. But at least I don't spend money that isn't mine. She stormed off, muttering about how difficult I was becoming. Difficult. That's what she called boundaries. Next, I called my lawyer, Marcus, a man who'd seen more train wreck marriages than a Vegas priest. I handed him the folder. He flipped through it, whistling low. You've been busy, he said. I've been patient, I corrected. Most men blow up. You're building a clock. That's the point, I said. When it strikes, I want it to feel like it was ticking all along. He nodded. You'll bury her with this. I smiled. Oh, Marcus, we're not even in the burying phase yet. This is still gardening. Just planting seeds. When I got home that evening, Vanessa was on the phone, voice sweet as honey. Yes, baby, she whispered. I'll see you Tuesday. She turned, startled when she saw me. I smiled, kissed her on the cheek, and went upstairs. See, the cruelest part of revenge isn't the strike. It's the anticipation. It's letting them laugh, flirt, spend, and lie, while you quietly file every detail into the box that's going to end them. By now, the oak box wasn't just storage. It was destiny. And with every careless step she took, she was carrying it toward herself. You know the funny thing about secrets? They rot faster when you give them sunshine. And Vanessa, bless her oblivious heart, couldn't resist pulling hers out into daylight. She thought she was clever, laughing too hard at her phone, slipping out for client calls, getting her nails done at odd hours. The problem wasn't that she cheated. The problem was that she got lazy with it. Lazy liars are my favorite. The first Real slip came at a charity gala. One of those rented ballroom events where everyone pretends to care about community development while sizing up each other's jewelry. She insisted I come, her big night. Networking, she called it. We walked in together, hand in hand for show. She looked radiant, I'll give her that. Gold dress, hair curled, heels sharp enough to gut a man. And yet, despite all the shine, she couldn't resist the itch. Her phone buzzed 3 times in her clutch during dinner. She excused herself, muttering about the ladies' room, and vanished for 20 minutes. When she returned, her lipstick was fresher, her cheeks flushed, and her perfume stronger. Subtle as a neon sign. I didn't confront her. Instead, I leaned in and said, "Hope the plumbing was worth the wait." She blinked, unsure if I'd meant what she thought I meant. I just smiled, clinked my glass with hers, and turned back to the table. That's the thing about subtlety. It plants doubt that grows faster than any accusation. Later, as she chatted with donors, I caught her friend Celeste. Yes, the same realtor alibi she used, shooting me a guilty glance. That was confirmation enough. Vanessa wasn't just sloppy. She was dragging accomplices into it. And accomplices? They break under pressure. The next morning, while Vanessa slept in, I called Celeste. Simple pretext. I was looking at a property listing she'd posted. Harmless, right? We chatted. I asked a few questions. Then, with a smile on my voice, I said, "By the way, did Vanessa enjoy the gala last night?" She seemed awfully refreshed after her little break. Silence. Just for a beat. Then Celeste laughed. Forced, brittle. "Oh, you know Vanessa. Always needing to fix her makeup." That pause told me everything. She knew. She just didn't want to be the one to say it. And that was perfect. Because a guilty conscience is like a crack in glass. Just needs a little pressure before it shatters. Meanwhile, I kept planting seeds at home. Small moves, barely noticeable. The credit card freeze had already rattled her. So I moved on to utilities. Quietly switched all the accounts, electric, gas, internet, into my name only. Why? Because leverage comes in surprising packages. One night, she stormed into my office, holding a bill in her hand. "Why does the electric company only list you now?" "Clerical error," I said without looking up from my laptop. "You should fix it," she snapped. "Already did." I lied, scrolling through spreadsheets that had nothing to do with work. She huffed and left, muttering about incompetence. I smiled at the screen. Another seed planted. The real show came a week later. Vanessa had been bragging about a new listing she landed, some big client with money to burn. She wanted to celebrate, drag me to a steakhouse. I went, of course, ordered my usual bourbon, sat back, and let her bask in the glow of her own delusion. Midway through dinner, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, tried to hide the grin, then excused herself to the bathroom. Again, but this time I was ready. I followed at a distance, casual as a man stretching his legs. She didn't head to the restroom. She slipped out the side door into the alley, where he was waiting. Lover boy, the contractor, the same man I once handed a beer after he fixed our deck. They hugged, quick but familiar. She kissed his cheek, whispered something in his ear. He laughed, low and intimate. Then she checked her watch and darted back inside. I didn't move, didn't interrupt, just watched. Then, as he left, I snapped a photo. Nothing dramatic, just him walking away from the restaurant, glancing over his shoulder. Enough to suggest, not enough to accuse. Context is everything, and I already had plenty of context saved. Back at the table, she slid into her seat, pretending nothing happened. "Long line," she said breezily. "Yeah," I murmured. Funny how time slips away when you're in the wrong place. Her fork froze midair, just for a second. Then she forced a laugh. "What does that even mean?" "Nothing," I said, cutting into my steak. "Just an observation." That night, while she showered, I uploaded the photo into the Oak Box's growing archive. Each piece of evidence was a brick, and the wall was almost finished. But I wasn't just collecting for myself anymore. I'd begun to share. Not with family, not yet. With my lawyer, with my accountant, with 1 or 2 very trusted colleagues. Quietly, discreetly. Copies of everything. Spread like insurance policies. Because when the house falls, you don't want to be the only one holding the match. The cracks in her public life grew bigger, too. She started snapping at friends, accusing them of gossiping. At a dinner party, She even cornered Celeste, whispering furiously while glancing at me across the room. I pretended not to notice, but I did. Oh, I noticed. Then came the meltdown. We were hosting her parents one Sunday. Roast chicken, potatoes, the usual spread. She played the doting daughter, pouring wine, laughing at her father's tired jokes. Everything was smooth until her phone buzzed. She glanced down, eyes flicking wide, tried to slip it back into her lap unnoticed. But her mother, nosy as ever, leaned over and said, "Who's texting you so much, dear? You've been glued to that thing all night." Vanessa flushed. "Just work, Mom." On a Sunday, her mother pressed. I didn't intervene. I didn't have to. The tension thickened on its own. Vanessa snapped. "Yes, on a Sunday. Not all of us can sit around doing crosswords." Her parents froze. The room went silent. I sipped my wine. That night, after they left, she stormed into the bedroom. "You let them embarrass me." "Did I?" I asked calmly, loosening my tie. "Yes," she screamed. "You just sat there, letting my mom interrogate me like I'm some teenager sneaking out." I shrugged. "Maybe if you didn't act like one, she wouldn't have reason." She gasped, furious. "You're pathetic. You think you're so clever, sitting there with your little smirk, judging me." "Not judging," I interrupted. "Documenting." Her face went pale. "What did you just say?" I smiled. "Nothing, dear. Get some rest." She didn't sleep that night. I heard her pacing the hallway at 2 a.m., whispering into her phone. Her paranoia was starting to eat her alive. And paranoia, unlike me, doesn't need patience. By the time morning came, she looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Dark circles under her eyes, lipstick smudged, hands trembling as she stirred her coffee. "Rough night?" I asked, sipping mine. She glared. "You're enjoying this." I tilted my head. Enjoying what? Silence. She couldn't answer without admitting what she feared I knew. And that was the beauty of it. She didn't know what I had, or how much. She only knew that something was closing in, and she couldn't stop it. The oak box was nearly full. And Vanessa? She was nearly emptied up. Why now? The game had shifted. For months, I had been the silent archivist, collecting, filing, waiting. But once Vanessa started unraveling in public, I knew it was time to move from documenting to directing. You can't play chess forever without eventually tipping your king toward victory. It started with the finances. Quietly, discreetly, I'd already separated most of our accounts. She didn't notice, of course. Vanessa had always been allergic to details. As long as her nails were done and the Range Rover had gas, the rest of life just magically worked in her head. One Tuesday morning, she called me at work, voice dripping with sugar but cracking underneath. "Hey, quick thing. My card got declined at Neiman's. Something about authorization. Did you forget to pay the balance?" I leaned back in my chair, smiled at the ceiling. "Strange. I'll check with the bank. Can you do it today?" I was embarrassed. She pressed, irritation bleeding through the act. "Of course," I said. We wouldn't want embarrassment. I hung up, didn't call the bank, didn't fix a thing. Let her stew. That evening, she stomped into the kitchen, tossed her shopping bags onto the counter. "This is ridiculous." I had to use my debit card like some broke college kid. "Tragic," I said, spooning chili into a bowl. "You must have survived, though. You're still here. You think this is funny?" "No," I said calmly. "I think it's predictable." She glared, but for once, she didn't have a comeback. She was beginning to sense the ground shifting under her feet, though she couldn't prove it. The next move was subtler. I started pulling back socially, not from friends, but from her circle. The brunches, the double dates, the neighborhood barbecues where she liked to perform. I stopped showing up. And without me there, her mask didn't sit as firmly. I heard about it through the grapevine. A friend's wife mentioned Vanessa had been snappy at brunch, snapping at Celeste about gossip. Another whispered that Vanessa seemed scattered, almost paranoid. Perfect. I didn't need to expose her. She was doing that herself. The lawyer, Marcus, and I met every Thursday evening by then. We went over the folder, page by page. He whistled at some of the texts, shook his head at the receipts. "Most guys bring me scraps," he said. "You brought me an arsenal." "Precision," I said. "Divorce court will shred her with this." I smiled. "Who said anything about divorce?" Marcus blinked, then chuckled. "You're a colder man than most. I'll give you that." See, divorce was too obvious. Too merciful. I didn't want her simply gone. I wanted her hollowed. I wanted her to look around one day and realize she hadn't just lost me. She'd lost the image of herself she'd built like a sandcastle. That opportunity came sooner than I expected. One Friday, she hosted a wine night with her friends. I stayed upstairs, laptop open, pretending to work. Laughter floated up from the living room, brittle and too high-pitched. I listened as they complained about their husbands, compared handbags, gossiped about who'd had Botox. Then I heard Vanessa's voice, sharp and cutting. At least I don't have to beg for attention like you guys. I've got options. Options. The room went quiet after that. I could imagine the looks. Her own arrogance was prying at the cracks. Later, after her friends left, she stormed upstairs. "Did you hear that?" she demanded. "I hear everything," I said softly, not looking up from my screen. She froze, studying me. "What do you mean?" I closed the laptop. Met her eyes. I noticed patterns. "And you've been leaving fingerprints everywhere." Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then spun on her heel and slammed the door. That night, I backed up every file again. Labeled the new folder, Finale. Her paranoia escalated after that. She started hovering around me more, asking where I was going, who I was meeting. The irony wasn't lost on me. She, the one sneaking off to hotel rooms, suddenly suspicious of my perfectly mundane trips to the hardware store. One evening, she actually confronted me. "Are you seeing someone?" she asked, arms crossed, chin tilted high like she was daring me to admit it. I laughed, not cruelly, just a low, amused laugh that seemed to rattle her more than a denial. "Why would I need to?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, pouring a drink, "that I don't chase cheap substitutes. I build. I wait. I finish." She stared at me, truly unnerved for the first time, then muttered something about me being creepy and stormed off. The beauty of it all was that she was unraveling without me lifting a finger. Her lies were fraying. Her friends were whispering. Her parents were noticing. And me? I was just the quiet presence in the corner, the man who smiled too easily, who never raised his voice, who never accused, just documented. Then came the crack that widened everything. One afternoon, I got a call from our son's school. "Routine," they said, "just confirming a parent pickup authorization." Apparently, Vanessa had added a name to the list. Not mine, not her parents', not Celeste. His. The contractor. She had listed her lover as someone authorized to pick up our child. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, heart steady as stone. "Thank you for letting me know," I told the secretary. "I'll handle it." I didn't confront Vanessa that night. I simply logged into the parent portal, removed the authorization, and replaced it with my lawyer's name. Quiet. Precise. Permanent. Then, for good measure, I printed the request she'd submitted. Added it to the oak box. That was the moment I knew the endgame was close. She wasn't just careless now, she was reckless. And reckless people are the easiest to corner, because they walk themselves straight into traps while thinking they're untouchable. The next Sunday, I made breakfast. Bacon, eggs, coffee, her favorite. She shuffled in, robe tied loose, phone in hand. "You're being nice?" she said suspiciously. "I'm always nice," I said, setting a plate in front of her. She smirked, sat down, fork in hand. "You're plotting something." I sipped my coffee, smiled. "Always." She frowned, but took a bite anyway. As I watched her chew, eyes darting, paranoia brewing, I knew the clock I'd built was ticking louder. She could hear it, even if she didn't understand what it meant. And when it struck, it wouldn't just be divorce papers or a screaming match. No, Vanessa was going to lose everything. Her image, her lies, her precious control. Because men like me don't rage. We dismantle. And she had no idea just how close she was to her final chapter. Why now? Vanessa was jumpy as a cat in a thunderstorm. Every phone buzz made her flinch. Every casual look from me made her squirm. She'd once been the queen of gaslighting, flipping every accusation back on me with laughter and mockery. But now, her confidence had curdled into paranoia. The more she tried to act normal, the worse it got. At another neighborhood barbecue, she snapped at someone for asking about her work trips. The poor guy had meant nothing by it, just small talk. But Vanessa lashed out, accusing him of spreading rumors. People exchanged glances. I just sipped my beer. No rescue. No defense. Let her dig her own grave. At home, she got bolder in her desperation. One night, she cornered me in the kitchen, gripping my arm hard enough to leave marks. "Tell me," she demanded. "What do you know?" I looked at her hand, then at her. Calm as a surgeon. Everything. She froze, then tried to laugh it off. But her laugh shook. You're bluffing. Maybe, I said. But the thing about bluffing? You only need to be right once. She let go, retreating like I'd burned her. That night, she texted someone at 2 a.m. I heard the buzz, the muffled giggle, the whispered, "We need to be careful." I didn't move, just listened. And in the morning, I copied the messages straight from the iPad sync. The oak box was nearly full. By midsummer, her public mask was cracking. Friends were avoiding her. Her parents called me privately, concerned about her mood swings. I played dumb, shaking my head sympathetically. One afternoon, she staged a fight in the driveway. Loud, theatrical, hoping to bait me into shouting. Neighbors peeked through curtains. She accused me of being controlling, cold, unfaithful even. Projection, pure and simple. I just stood there, arms crossed, letting her burn herself alive. When she finally screamed, "You're pathetic," and stormed inside, I smiled at the neighbor across the street. "Hot weather," I said. He nodded awkwardly. Later, she tried a new tactic, seduction. Slipped into lingerie she hadn't worn in years, sauntered into the bedroom like she was auditioning for forgiveness. I closed my book, looked her up and down, and said, "Desperate doesn't suit you." The mask cracked completely. She threw a shoe at the wall and stormed out. That same week, I moved the oak box into the safety deposit vault. It was no longer just evidence. It was a loaded gun, pointed squarely at her world. And soon, I was going to pull the trigger. The opportunity came wrapped in velvet. Vanessa had been campaigning for a promotion at her brokerage firm. She needed her reputation spotless. No gossip, no drama. Perfect timing. The day before her big review, I sent an anonymous envelope to her boss. Inside, a curated selection of screenshots, receipts, and one particularly damning hotel invoice with her signature on it. Nothing explicit, just enough to raise questions. That night, she pranced around the house rehearsing her "I deserve this" speech. I kissed her forehead, wished her luck, and went to bed. The next evening, she came home pale, trembling, mascara streaked down her cheeks. They said I'm not being considered anymore," she stammered. They hinted at impropriety. "Oh no," I said softly, feigning shock. "That must feel awful." She searched my face, desperate for reassurance, for denial. I gave her nothing but calm sympathy. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing into her wine glass. That was the first domino. Over the next month, her reputation crumbled. Clients pulled away. Friends stopped calling. Even Celeste, her loyal alibi, cut ties after a few whispered rumors about unprofessional behavior. And through it all, I stayed steady, present, calm, supportive even. The good husband. The rock. Which made it worse. Because paranoia thrives in silence. She knew the storm was coming from me, but she couldn't prove it. The revenge itself was almost too easy. One crisp autumn morning, I handed her a thick envelope at the breakfast table. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, copies of everything. Emails, receipts, photos. Every lie cataloged, every betrayal time-stamped. Her face drained of color. You've been spying on me?" "No," I said calmly. "I've been documenting you." She looked up, fury and fear colliding in her eyes. "You'll ruin me." I smiled. "Already did." Then I slid across the second envelope. Divorce papers, pristine and final. Assets locked. Accounts separated. Custody secured. Every angle covered. She gaped. "You planned this." "Of course," I said. "Men like me don't rage. We dismantle." The twist? I wasn't even going to fight her in court. Because I didn't need to. The second clause in the settlement, buried deep in legalese, stripped her of everything if she contested. Her lawyer, assuming she could still afford one, would tell her the same. So she signed. She had no choice. When the ink dried, she looked up at me, broken. "Why?" I stood, pocketed the papers, and headed for the door. "Because, Vanessa," I said softly, "you called me a placeholder. And placeholders don't argue. We execute." And with that, I left. No shouting. No violence. No satisfaction for her to cling to. Just silence. The kind that echoes forever. The oak box still sits in my closet. Empty now, but polished, ready. Because some tools you never throw away.